Rain poured in sheets across the dimly lit motel parking lot. Sarah clutched her son tightly, heart pounding as shadows closed in. Sarah's breath hitched with each gulp of cold air. The neon motel sign flickered overhead. Her son, Timmy, whimpered softly in her arms. His tiny body trembled against her chest. Thunder crashed, rattling the windows of the shabby sedan parked nearby. She risked a glance over her shoulder. Dark figures moved closer, boots splashing in puddles. Lightning split the sky as she darted from the cover of her car. The wet asphalt glistened under streetlights. Her knuckles went white around Timmy's small hand. He was 6, sleep-riled, clutching a worn teddy bear. Sarah's eyes darted to the closed motel door. It offered the only hope. "Mama?" Timmy's voice quivered, but he held on. Sarah forced a nod. She took one step, then another. Her boots slapped against the rain-slick pavement. Each step felt heavier than the last. Her mind raced. Find safety. Protect her boy. Survive. Footsteps thundered behind them. She bolted toward the dim lobby. The door swung open just as a pickup truck screeched to a halt. A tall man in a dark leather jacket jumped out, gun drawn. He fired a warning shot into the air. The clawing hands of danger hesitated. Sarah seized her chance. She darted inside, slamming the door behind her. Lobby lights buzzed overhead. The chipped counter was empty. Water dripped from her hair onto the stained carpet. She slid to the floor, pressing Timmy close. Gasping, she scanned the room. A receptionist's station, a battered vending machine, and a locked office door. No help. Footsteps pounded outside. A heavy knock shook the door. Sarah tightened her grip. Her heart pounded like a drum. Timmy buried his face in her coat. The door rattled again. She sank lower, tears mixing with rain on her cheeks. Suddenly, a voice barked from the side corridor. "Hey, get away from that door!" A shadow appeared at the end of the hallway. A man dressed in black tactical gear sprinted into the lobby. He raised his rifle, aiming at the door. 2 figures turned to face him. In the dim light, their faces appeared cold and resolved. The stranger opened fire. Bullets shattered the lock. The door crashed open. Sarah shielded Timmy as the man lunged forward. The attackers retreated, their boots skidding on wet concrete, as rain poured through the broken door. The man crouched beside Sarah. He lifted her chin gently. "Are you hurt?" His voice was calm, reassuring. Sarah shook her head, too stunned to speak. The stranger helpfully lifted Timmy from her arms. The boy looked up, fear etched across his face, then relaxed in the stranger's firm grasp. The man scanned the lobby, rifle still trained outside. "We can't stay," he muttered. "Follow me." He dashed toward the office door and pulled a key from his pocket. Sarah hesitated. Her mind raced with questions. Who was this man? Why? Did he help? Was he another threat? He ushered them into the cramped office. The door locked behind them. Inside, filing cabinets and dusty boxes lined the walls. The sound of rain thundered overhead. Sarah hugged Timmy close, relief and fear warring inside her. Outside, another crash echoed. The stranger's face turned grim. He sank to one knee, whispering, "We don't have much time." Sarah's breath caught. Her pulse hammered. A new sense of dread settled in her chest. She didn't know what awaited them, only that the night was far from over. Character introduction and background. Sarah Hart stood in front of the bathroom mirror, dripping wet hair framing a face etched with worry. Her eyes, once bright, now held shadows of sleepless nights. She dabbed at a bruise on her cheek. It ached still. Her reflection stared back, exhausted but determined. In the tiny trailer behind her mother's house, she prepared breakfast. Timmy sat at a rickety table, spooning cereal into his mouth. His blonde hair curled at the nape of his neck. He was cheerful despite hardship, laughing at cartoons and humming to himself. Sarah smiled, despite the knot in her chest. It was morning, but gray clouds threatened rain. She flipped pancakes on a battered griddle. The smell of batter filled the trailer. It was a small comfort. Sarah had lost so much. A husband shot dead 2 years ago. A broken home. A father who vanished without a trace when she was a teenager. All she had was Timmy. And a secret she buried deep. A letter she'd found in her mother's attic, written in her father's handwriting, hinting at a hidden inheritance. "Mommy," Timmy said, mouth full, "why do we live here?" His question came with innocent curiosity. Sarah paused, heart twisting. She smiled gently. "Because it's just us right now," she said. "But we'll be okay." She knelt beside him, smoothing milk from his chin. "I promise." She glanced at the door. Her mother worked double, shifts at the diner. It left Sarah to juggle everything alone. Her phone buzzed, a text from her mother. "Work ran late. I won't be home till evening. Be careful." Sarah sighed. She wiped her hands. She scooped Timmy up. "Let's get ready for school." They hurried through morning routines, chores, breakfast, and hurried hugs. Timmy grabbed his backpack, kissed her cheek. "Love you, Mom." Sarah tucked a strand of hair behind his ear. "Love you more." Later, she drove him to school. The car radio played soft country tunes. Outside, trees swayed in the wind, branches whipping against windows. She parked, watching Timmy hop out and wave. His bright smile warmed her, despite the gray day. Back on the road, Sarah focused on the letter. It lay in her purse, edges frayed. Her father's words teased her. "Follow the clues in Lancaster. Your future awaits." Lancaster was a small town 2 hours away. Could it be a life-changing inheritance or a trap? Her gut churned at the thought. At her temp job at the automotive shop, she wore grease-stained overalls and wiped sweat from her brow. She greeted colleagues with a polite nod. By evening, her muscles ached, but her resolve was stronger than exhaustion. She dreamed of a day when she'd quit this back-breaking labor and give Timmy a normal life. After work, she returned home. The trailer was dim. Rain pattered against the thin roof. She opened the door to find her mother asleep on the couch. Bills piled on the coffee table. A final notice threatened electricity shut-off in 3 days. Sarah's chest tightened. Tears threatened. She knelt and shook her gently. "Mom, wake up!" Her mother groaned and opened bleary eyes. "I'm sorry, Sarah." She rubbed her forehead. "I tried to make extra." Her voice wavered. Guilt flickered in Sarah's chest. She offered a weak smile. "We'll figure it out." She collected the bills. The total was more than her next paycheck. As night fell, she held the letter under a dim lamp. The handwriting was elegant, almost familiar. She read and reread, tracing each word with her finger. A knot of emotion tied in her stomach. Her father had abandoned her, but he left a clue now. Love, fear, confusion tangled in her mind. She tucked the letter away, steeling herself. Tomorrow she'd tell Timmy's teacher to keep an eye on him. And then she would leave. Search for answers. Protect her son. The unknown awaited. The rain tapped a steady rhythm on her window. Sleep came. Hard dreams haunted by shadowy figures and distant memories. The next morning, sunlight barely pierced storm clouds. Sarah drove to Timmy's school, anxiety churning inside her. The letter burned in her purse, but she hesitated. She couldn't risk another wild chase, not until she was ready. At the school, she kissed Timmy goodbye. He bounded inside, waving. She forced a smile. After that, she returned to her trailer. She opened the letter again, tracing her father's scrawl. Instructions led to a rundown library in Lancaster. A cryptic note. Trust no one. Seek the private. Archives. Key under the third window. Her heartbeat rattled. Could she trust this? Memories of abandonment stung, but the promise of change glowed brighter. She found a map online, marking the library's location. Her hands shook. She grabbed coffee and tossed it back, then set off on the highway. Rain fell in gentle sheets. 2 hours later, she parked in front of the brick library. Ivy crawled up, its walls. The windows were grime-streaked. The storm clouds above rumbled. Sarah's heart pounded as she slipped out of her car. She flew across wet grass toward the third window. Kneeling, she felt under the ledge. Her fingers brushed a small, brass key. She dropped it with a gasp, picked it back up. A rusted lock on a service door waited. She fit the key in. It turned with a creak. She exhaled. The door opened as a cold breeze welcomed her. A whisper of secrets. Inside, the library was silent. Dust motes floated in shafts of dim light. Rows of tall bookshelves stretched into shadow. The air smelled of old paper and wood polish. She crept forward, clutching the letter. Each creak of floorboard echoed. She spotted a plaque. Private archives. Authorized personnel only. Her heart pounded. Using the key again, she unlocked a heavy oak door. It swung open to reveal a small room lined with filing cabinets and leather-bound ledgers. Under flickering fluorescent lights, she searched for a file matching her father's name. Her pulse drummed in her ears. After minutes, she found a folder labeled Thomas Hart. Inside lay documents, a deed to a rural farm, a will, and a photograph. Her father holding a newborn baby, his arm around a woman Sarah had never seen. Her throat tightened. The inheritance was real. A farm 20 miles outside Lancaster, but a note in the file warned, property contested, suit pending, and scrawled in her father's handwriting, beware the surname Blackwood. Sarah frowned. Blackwood? The name stirred distant, fragmented memories. A sudden click from the hallway made her freeze. Footsteps approached. Fear coursed through her. She snatched the folder and ducked behind a shelf. Through a narrow gap, she saw 2 men in dark suits enter the archives. Their posture was rigid. One wore gold cufflinks engraved with a rampant lion, the Blackwood crest. Find anything? The younger asked. His voice was low but harsh. Sarah's blood ran cold. Was the Blackwood family searching for her too? She stifled a gasp as he kicked open another cabinet. Here. The older man pulled out the folder. He leafed through pages. Sarah clenched her fist. Panic clawed at her throat. Footsteps receded as the men left. Sarah exhaled. Her hands shook as she crawled from behind the shelf. She tucked the folder inside her jacket. The weight of truth pressed on her chest. The Blackwoods wanted the farm. They knew her father had willed it to her. If they found her here. She slipped out a side exit, rain greeting her like an old wound. Wet streets reflected the library lights as she dashed to her car. Each drop of rain felt like a heartbeat. She raced away, clutching the folder. Timmy's face flashed in her mind. She had to protect him. And now, a powerful family was hunting her. She glanced at the rearview mirror. A black sedan followed. Its headlights gleamed like hungry eyes. Her breath caught. The road twisted ahead. She gripped the steering wheel. Her pulse thundered. She was trapped between a past she never knew and a future filled with danger. Sarah drove like a woman possessed. Her knuckles whitened around the wheel. The black sedan stayed on her tail. Rain slicked the asphalt. She wove through traffic on the highway. The sedan mirrored her every move. She exited, taking back roads through the countryside, fields blurred in the downpour. Her headlights cut through mist. Timmy's folder lay on the passenger seat. Inside were documents proving her claim to the Hart homestead, 2,000 acres of farmland and a sprawling Victorian mansion. Worth millions, but the Blackwoods were powerful. Sarah recalled whispers from neighbors. They were ruthless, a family empire built on secrets. They'd stop at nothing. She needed help. A flicker of thought. The man who saved her in the motel. Who was he? She dialed 911 but cut the call short. No cops. They'd only bring more eyes. Instead, she searched her contacts. Only one name jumped out. Mason Reed. He was a private investigator, a friend of her late husband's. He had helped locate her husband's killer before. Sarah swallowed, her throat dry, and pressed his number. His voice was rough when he answered. "Sarah, it's been years." Relief flooded her. "Mason, I need help. They're after me." She breathed out the story in bursts. The letter, the Blackwoods, the farm. He listened, silent. "I'll be there in an hour," he said. "Don't lose them." He hung up. Sarah wiped her eyes and glanced at Timmy. He was asleep, head lolling against the seat. Her heart tightened. She swerved around a curve at speed, the sedan weaving dangerously behind her. Black smoke plumed from the sedan's exhaust as it closed. In. Sarah forced her foot to the floor. The engine roared. She glanced at the map on her phone. Mason's cabin was 30 minutes away. The back roads were twisted and narrow. Suddenly a tire blew. The wheel jerked. Sarah fought to keep control. The car veered toward the ditch. Screeching brakes barely saved them. She breathed a sob. The sedan sped past, its occupants smirking behind rain-streaked windows. Sarah's chest heaved. She pulled over, heart pounding. Her tire hissed. She placed Timmy in the passenger seat and grabbed her phone. "They blew my tire," she thought, panic rising. But no time to change it now. The cabin might be close. She removed the spare key and forced herself to run through mud toward the forest line. Midway through the field, headlights swept her. 2 men jumped out of the black sedan and gave chase. Her legs burned, lungs seized. She pushed harder, sprinting, toward the cabin in the distance. Trees loomed like silent sentinels. A shot rang out, bullet whizzing past her ear, the impact buried in the earth, scattering mud. She dived behind a boulder. Her breath came in ragged gasps. Fear coiled in her stomach. She scraped mud from her palms as she clambered to her feet, determined not to surrender. She had to reach Mason. Timmy needed her. Bullets kicked up earth around her. She darted from rock to rock, each step measured, each breath shallow. The cabin's outline emerged. Mason's porch light flickered. He stood in the doorway, shotgun in hand. Relief and hope surged together. Sarah sprinted the last few yards as he opened fire into the darkness. Her pursuers howled and retreated. She flung herself into his arms, tears streaming. Mason guided her inside, locking the door behind them. Inside, Mason's cabin was dimly lit, wood-paneled walls lined with books and maps. A single lamp cast warm light over a worn sofa. Timmy lay on the sofa, half awake. He blinked and managed a small smile when he saw Sarah. Mason checked the windows and bolted them shut. He stood firm between them and the door. "You're safe, for now," he said, voice steady. Sarah sank to the sofa beside Timmy. Relief melted into exhaustion, yet dread gnawed at her. The Blackwoods wouldn't stop. They had resources, and suspicion bloomed. Was anyone else working for them? Late that night, Mason laid out his findings on the coffee table. Maps, newspaper clippings about the Hart homestead, and old photos of Sarah's father. Mason leaned over her shoulder. The Blackwoods bought the neighboring land in the 1980s. Rumor is they want the Hart property to expand a biofuel project. He pointed to a photo of a grim-faced patriarch, Gregory Blackwood. His cold gaze fixed on Sarah from decades past. Sarah's chest tightened. The stakes were higher than she ever imagined. She squeezed Timmy's hand. "We have to fight," she whispered. Mason nodded. "We will." His jaw set. He promised legal contacts, safe houses, and backup. But he warned, they might need to disappear for a while. Sarah closed her eyes, tears wiping away doubt. Her son's life, her father's legacy. She would not let fear win. Outside, wind rattled the cabin's windows. The forest creaked. Somewhere, dark figures moved. The night was far from over. Over the next week, Mason kept them hidden in a safe house. It was a rustic cabin deep in the woods, reachable only by a narrow dirt path. Sarah and Timmy shared a small bedroom, mattresses on the floor. The walls smelled of pine and old leather. Mason arrived each morning before dawn. He brought food, coffee, and training equipment, a battered punching bag, a pair of worn gloves, and an old rifle. He had served as a Marine long ago. Now he taught Sarah basics of self-defense and firearms. Their first session was awkward. Sarah stood barefoot on the cold floor, sweat pooling under her shirt. Mason demonstrated a punch. He moved with precision. "Keep your guard up. Eyes on me." Sarah swung her fist, missing the bag entirely. Mason suppressed a grin. Again. Her muscles burned, but she tried again. This time the bag rocked. She blinked, surprised. "Good." Mason nodded and guided her stance. Feet shoulder width, knees bent. He placed her arm in proper position. She punched again. The bag jolted. Sarah dialed back her fear. Training evolved each day. Mason showed her how to load a magazine, aim, and fire at targets in the clearing behind the cabin. The first shot sent her heart racing. Recoil jolted her arm, and smoke swirled in the misty morning. The target, sketched outline of a man's torso, had a ragged hole near the center. She exhaled, relief flooding her chest. "Remember," Mason said, voice calm, "this is to protect you and Timmy. If you never have to use it, good." Sarah nodded, gripping the rifle tighter. Between training sessions, Mason drove them to a nondescript warehouse on the edge of town. There, a skilled instructor taught Sarah situational awareness, spotting threats, reading body language, and moving quietly. She learned to slip a knife from her boot without drawing attention. Each lesson stung. Her muscles ached, and panic flared when she imagined attackers around every corner. Yet, with each new skill, her confidence grew. Timmy watched from the sidelines, fascination shining in his big eyes. He practiced calls on a small handheld radio Mason gave him. "Mommy," he'd whisper. "If you need me, I'll call." He pressed a button, static crackling. Sarah's heart warmed. She touched his cheek. "You're my strongest little guy." By night, the safe house grew quiet. Sarah lay awake, muscles sore, replaying Mason's lessons. She felt stronger than she had in years. Yet, fear lingered. The Blackwoods were out there. With each flash of lightning, she considered fleeing further. But Timmy needed roots, stability. She could not run forever. Mason led her to the clearing again at dawn a week later. Fog clung to the ground. He set up targets spaced 50 yards apart. "Now," he said. "Move from target to target. Shoot and relocate." Sarah nodded, heart pounding. She sprinted from one lane to another, keeping low. She breathed shallow, squeezed triggers, and relocated. Each shot rang loud in the misty air. She finished gasping. Mason approached, nodding. "Better. Your timing improved." He offered a flask of water. Sarah drank deep. Her arms felt like lead, but she felt alive. Emotion welled in her instincts. She glanced back at the cabin. Timmy would be sleeping. She had to be ready. In their final training session, Mason focused on hand-to-hand defense. He locked her arm and said, "Now free yourself." Sarah panicked. She felt trapped. But she remembered stance, weight distribution. She shifted her hips, twisted, and broke free. She gasped, adrenaline sharpening her senses. Mason studied her. "Good. You learn fast." He placed a hand on her shoulder. "You're ready. But remember, the mind must stay sharp." Sarah nodded, wariness lingering. She realized danger would come in unexpected forms. Physical training was only part of it. That night, Sarah lay next to Timmy, listening to his soft breathing. Rain pelted the roof. Wind rattled the windows. Her body ached, yet hope kindled in her chest. She felt prepared to face whatever came next, but a sliver of doubt pierced her resolve. Could she trust Mason fully? Why had he helped her? Dawn broke, gray and cold. Sarah stirred on the couch in Mason's living room. She stretched aching muscles. Mason was already gone. The coffee table held newspapers with articles about the Hart homestead lawsuit. The Blackwoods had escalated. Legal maneuvers, threats, ominous ads in the local press labeling her father a criminal who stole land. Sarah scanned the headlines. Her grip tightened on the paper. She heard a knock. Mason stepped inside, expression grim. "We have to move. They hired mercenaries." He handed her a duffel bag. Inside were fresh clothes, cash, and a burner phone. Sarah's heart pounded. "Where to?" Mason frowned. "I found a safe house run by my old unit. It's miles away. You'll be safe there." He wrote an address on a scrap of paper. "Take Timmy and go now." She hesitated. "What about you?" He shook his head. "I'll cover you. Move." Time blurred as she packed Timmy's things. Rain splattered the windows. She looked at Mason. "Be careful." He offered a tight smile. She squeezed his hand. Then they vanished into the gray morning. They drove in silence. Timmy slept in the back seat. Sarah's mind raced. They reached a small cabin hidden in woods near a frozen river. Mason led them inside. The safe house was empty. Bare mattress, wood stove, minimal supplies. Sarah lit a fire. She sat with Timmy, holding him close. Warmth spread through her. Later, Mason found her by the riverbank. The mist hovered above the ice. He stared at his reflection, troubled. "I need to go back," he said. "I have unfinished business." Sarah's chest twinged. "Why?" He gazed at her, haunted. "They arched a warrant for my arrest. They framed me for something I didn't do." She frowned. "Who did?" Mason's jaw tightened. "The Blackwoods. They have friends everywhere. I uncovered evidence their biofuel project was poisoning groundwater." He glared at the frozen river. "They're guilty, but they framed me. I couldn't go to the police." Sarah's mind whirled. She stepped closer. "What does this mean for us?" Mason gazed down at Timmy. "You're their next target. They'll use anyone." He handed Sarah a USB drive. "These files prove everything. Scientific data about pollution, bank transactions. Giving this to the right journalist could ruin them." Sarah gripped the drive. Her pulse raced. "We need evidence for court." Mason nodded. "Yes, but I think someone inside is betraying us." He hesitated. "I think you can't trust, well, not everyone." Sarah recoiled. "Who?" She waited. Mason swallowed. "Someone close to me." His gaze flicked away. Before she could Ask more. Quiet steps approached. A figure loomed behind them. Sarah's breath hitched. A bolt of fear shot through her. She spun. An armed man stood by the edge of the clearing. His eyes were steely. He raised his rifle. Mason sprang forward, pushing Sarah behind him. "Who are you?" The man's face was familiar in the dim light. Sarah's throat closed. "Jake?" He flinched at the name. "Son of old friends," Mason said. Jake smirked. "I'm loyal to my employers." He trained the rifle on Mason. Mason's voice caught. "Why?" Jake's eyes flicked to Sarah. "She's got the files. Hand them over." Sarah's heart pounded. She clutched the USB drive. "No," she whispered, bobbing fear and resolve. Jake stepped closer, finger on the trigger. Suddenly, Mason moved. He kicked Jake's rifle aside. It skittered across the ice. Mason grappled with him. Snow flew as they tumbled onto the frozen river. Crack lines spidered across the ice. Sarah gasped. Timmy stood at the cabin door, terrified. Jake battered Mason's face. Mason refused to relent. Sarah dropped the USB drive and sprinted forward. She charged, shoulder first, into Jake. He stumbled back. Sarah landed a fist across his jaw. He fell, hitting his head on the ice with a sickening crack. Mason sighed in relief, bruised but alive. Jake lay still. Sarah's blood ran cold. Jake moaned and moved. Sarah knelt beside him, hands shaking. Mason snapped a zip tie on his wrists. "Guess who's not so loyal now?" he murmured. Jake glared at Sarah through one eye. "Mason, you never should have trusted her." Mason's eyes hardened. "Get in the SUV, now." He helped Sarah to her feet. They left Jake behind, tied and bleeding on the ice. Back at the cabin, Sarah cradled a shaking Timmy. Mason locked the cabin door behind them. "We can't stay," he said. Rain began to fall again, tapping a mournful rhythm. Sarah held Timmy, tears streaming. Betrayal had cut deep. Under cover of night, Sarah, Timmy, and Mason drove miles to an abandoned farmhouse. Once they arrived, Mason led them through a hidden passage to a basement. The cellar was cramped, dusty, lit by a single bare bulb. Rusted tools lined the walls. Sarah touched Timmy's hair. He trembled against her. Mason handed her a battered revolver. "Keep this," he said. "Load it." She slid bullets into the cylinder, each click echoing in the gloom. Above, footsteps creaked. Sarah's heart raced. The Blackwoods had found them. She placed a kiss on Timmy's head. "Stay quiet," she whispered. He nodded, eyes wide. Suddenly, the cellar door blew open. Bright flashlight beams stabbed through darkness. Two militia-clad figures in tactical vests flooded in. They raised rifles. Sarah stood, revolver trembling in her hand. "Sarah Hart?" A tall man barked, voice rough. It was Gregory Blackwood's son, Victor. His smug grin cut deep. Behind them, another man carried the USB drive, ripped from her jacket years ago. Sarah felt like the air had left her lungs. This was it. She raised her voice, shaking but fierce. "You took my father's property. You framed people, poisoned the water. You left a trail of broken lives." Her words trembled, but her eyes burned with truth. Victor sneered. "You're a fool. Your father was a coward. This farm is ours now." He tipped his head. More Blackwood agents swarmed the room. Mason stepped forward, fists clenched. "You leave them alone," he growled. A bullet pinged off the concrete floor. Mason dove toward Sarah, pushing her behind him. Gunfire erupted above. Sarah shielded Timmy behind a stack of crates. Splinters flew as bullets tore through wood. She squeezed the revolver tight. Hart hammered. She peeked around the crate. Victor stood near the exit, rifle aimed. "Come on, Sarah," Mason hissed. "We get out now." Sarah glanced at Timmy. Fear flickered in his eyes. She nodded. Adrenaline surged. They bolted toward a hidden door behind a water tank. Mason kicked it open. Outside, rain lashed down. The night was a blurry scramble of trees and mud. They sprinted toward Mason's old Jeep parked under a lean-to. Mason released a feral whistle. Through the darkness, shadowy shapes moved. Blackwood agents closing in. Mason fired a flare from the Viper shotgun. It arced into the sky, bright as a bleeding star. The world lit up in crimson. Sarah grabbed Timmy's hand. She ran, boots slipping in mud. Machine gun fire rattled the Jeep. Mason slammed the door shut, gunning the engine. Sarah shoved Timmy into the back seat and dove in beside him. Mason pulled out of the lean-to, tires spinning. Bullets pocked the metal. Sarah's ears rang. She looked at Timmy's pale face. He gripped his teddy bear, eyes wide. She squeezed his shoulder. Mason floored it, careening down the muddy lane. Trees whipped past. The SUV shot out from behind a barn, blocking their exit. A barrage of automatic fire tore into the Jeep's hood. Mason yanked the wheel, fishtailing around the SUV. A second vehicle appeared, headlights slicing the gloom. Sarah braced as the Jeep slammed into a ditch. The impact flung her forward. Pain lanced in her shoulder. Mason fought the wheel, spinning the Jeep to face oncoming threats. Timmy screamed as the vehicle shuddered. Sarah yanked the door open and pushed Timmy outside. He stumbled, crying. She gathered him in her arms and ran toward the woods. Mason squeezed out of the driver's side, bleeding from a cut on his forehead. He joined them. They plunged into the forest. Mud sucked at their boots. Branches whipped their faces. Behind them, headlights and gunfire lit the trees. Fear roared in Sarah's chest, but she pressed on. Timmy's small hand gripped hers. She whispered, "Keep moving." They reached a steep embankment leading to a creek. Mason climbed first, dropping a rope. Sarah hauled Timmy up, then climbed herself, blood seeping through her shirt. Frost and mud caked her hair. At the top, Mason pointed. "Follow this ridge. We'll lose them." They ran, weaving between trees. Sarah felt strength she never knew she had. Her mind focused only on Timmy. Behind them, black suits swarmed the woods like wolves. Flashlights bobbed. Sinister voices barked orders. Suddenly a shot rang out. Mason grunted, staggered. Sarah glanced back. Mason clutched his side, but he kept running. A crimson stain spread across his gray shirt. Sarah's heart lurched. She grabbed Timmy and slowed. "Mason!" she screamed. He shook his head, despite pale lips. "Go!" He stumbled and collapsed. Sarah pressed kisses to his cheek. "No!" "Listen to me," he rasped. "You have the drive? Get it to the press." Sarah clenched the USB drive in her fist. "I won't leave you." He forced a shaky smile. "You have to." Then darkness claimed him. Tears blurred Sarah's vision. She held Timmy close. "I'm sorry," she whispered. She raced deeper into the forest. Branches tore at her clothes. She tripped over roots, but kept moving. At last, they burst into a clearing. A cracked dirt road ran along the edge. Rain hammered down. An old green sedan idled near a rusted barn. Sarah ran toward it, waving her arms. The driver rolled down the window, an elderly man in flannel. He blinked, confused, then motioned them inside. Sarah thrust Timmy to the seat behind. She collapsed beside him. The old man gunned the engine and roared down the road, splashing through puddles. Behind them, the forest loomed, silent now. Sarah gasped, panting. Timmy's hand squeezed hers. She slid her fingers into the pocket holding the USB drive. The old man set them at a small diner on the outskirts of town. Inside, warm light and the smell of coffee greeted them. Sarah sat with Timmy in a booth. He stared at her, fear in his eyes. She enveloped him in a hug. "We're safe now," she whispered, voice shaking. They sat in silence until morning light filtered through rain-streaked windows. A reporter from a local paper approached, sliding into the booth. She introduced herself as Elena Cruz. Sarah's pulse raced. Elena glanced at the drive. "You have evidence against the Blackwoods?" Sarah nodded, handing it over. Elena smiled softly. "You're doing the right thing." Over the next week, Elena's articles exploded online. The files exposed water contamination, illegal land grabs, and links to powerful politicians. Public outrage flared. Protests sprung up outside Blackwood headquarters. Lawsuits erupted. Meanwhile, Sarah and Timmy found refuge at a transitional housing program funded by a charity for single mothers. Their tiny apartment had a squeaking heater and peeling wallpaper. Yet the air felt different, faintly safe. Sarah enrolled at a community college studying business. She wanted to manage the Hart homestead, restore it. But first, she needed legal clearance. The courts froze the property until the Blackwood lawsuits resolved. Sarah met with her new lawyer, Nadia Patel, who smiled warmly. "You have a strong case. The evidence is overwhelming." Sarah exhaled. Relief bloomed inside her. "I can't wait to bring Timmy home to the farm." Timmy started second grade in a new school. He made friends quickly, his laughter echoing in the playground. His teddy bear rode shotgun in the car. Sarah watched him chat happily as she waited for the school bus each morning. Yet nightmares sometimes woke Timmy. Shadows haunted his sleep. At night he climbed into her bed, trembling. Sarah held him, her arms protective. "You're safe," she murmured, rocking him gently. One afternoon, a letter arrived. Sarah opened it with trembling hands. It was from the court, partial ruling in her favor. She owned a controlling interest in the Hart homestead. The Blackwoods were blocked from taking any actions that might harm the property. Tears welled in Sarah's eyes. She knelt on the porch of their apartment, clutching the letter to her chest. Behind her, Timmy bounced on the steps. "Mommy, what's that?" She wiped her tears and smiled. "Our future." Weeks later, they stood at the edge of the Hart homestead for the first time. The gate, once rusted, now gleamed in sunlight. Fields stretched as far as Sarah could see. The Victorian mansion stood tall but worn. Vines curled around its stone foundation. Sarah stepped forward, her boots crunching on gravel. Timmy raced ahead, exploring. The breeze carried the scent of wildflowers and damp earth. Sarah breathed deeply, feeling peace she hadn't known in years. She opened the front door. Inside, dust danced in shafts of light. Floorboards creaked under her weight. Each room held memories she did not know. Yet, hope bloomed with every step. She placed a hand on the banister. "We'll fix this place," she told Timmy. "I promise." He ran down the grand staircase, laughter echoing. Sarah watched him, heart full. She spotted a small plaque near the entry. Hart Homestead, since 1882. Her father's legacy. Later, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Sarah stood on the back porch. Timmy's laughter drifted from the fields as he chased fireflies. She closed, her eyes feeling the wind on her face. Memories of fear and betrayal lingered, but they no longer controlled her. A soft knock came at the door. Sarah opened it to find Mason leaning against the frame. He was battered. His face bore bruises, his shirt stained. Guilt flooded her. "Mason, what happened?" He smiled faintly, exhaustion and relief in his eyes. "They tried to disappear me on a shipping yard," he said, "but I managed to send evidence to the FBI. They raided Blackwood headquarters yesterday. Sarah's breath hitched. They arrested them? Mason nodded. Gregory Blackwood and his sons are in custody. Trials start next month. He glanced at Timmy. Looks like the farm is safe, thanks to you. Tears sprang in Sarah's eyes. I couldn't have done it without you. She opened her arms. Mason stepped inside and they embraced. That night, Sarah tucked Timmy into his new bedroom on the second floor. The room was bright, with sunlight streaming through curtains. He hugged his teddy bear. Mommy? Sarah kissed his forehead. Yes, baby? Timmy smiled sleepily. Do you think Grandpa would be proud? Sarah swallowed. Her father had died before she could know him. Yet, in this moment, she believed he watched over them. She watched Timmy's chest rise and fall as he drifted asleep. He'd be so proud, she whispered. Alone in the hallway, Sarah and Mason held hands. They gazed out a second-floor window, overlooking the fields. Fireflies danced across the grass. The farmhouse glowed in the moonlight. Mason squeezed her hand. You okay? She nodded, tears shining. I am now. He brushed a strand of hair behind her ear. What's next? Sarah inhaled the scent of the earth, freed from the Blackwoods, shadows. We rebuild, she said. We make this farm our home. We honor my father's legacy, and we build a new life. Mason smiled. I'm in, every step. Sarah turned to him, hope lighting her eyes. Thank you. For everything. Tipped his head. I'd follow you anywhere. They watched the fields sway under a gentle breeze. In the distance, the sun rose behind rolling hills. Timmy's laughter drifted upward. Sarah felt her heart expand with love, relief, and hope. The past would not define them. The darkness had strengthened them. Now, the future stretched wide, bright with promise. The farmhouse door creaked as a final firefly slipped inside, settling on the sill like a silent blessing.